I just got a message from our friend Jajabumi, our Tuesday night friend. Her daughter has COVID, so she's out doing errands for her daughter, who most likely needs some help. So we will read text 23 and see if we can get through the purport. Antavatu palam te sham tad bhavat yalpamedasam deva deva yajo yanti madbhakta yanti mam api. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme abode. All right, I guess if we didn't call on the Shmita, she would think something was wrong, so we'll call on the Shmita to give us the first paragraph.
Thank you, Maharaj. Some commentators on the Bhagavad Gita say that one who worships a demigod can reach the Supreme Lord, but here it is clearly stated that the worshippers of demigods go to the different planetary systems where various demigods are situated, just as a worshipper of the sun achieves the sun, or a worshipper of the demigod of the moon achieves the moon. Similarly, if anyone wants to worship a demigod like Indra, you can attain that particular god's planet. It is not that everyone, regardless of whatever demigod is worshipped, will reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is denied here, for it is clearly stated that the worshippers of demigods go to different planets in the material world, but the devotee of the Supreme Lord goes directly to the Supreme Planet of the Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. I'll just make one little statement and then we'll open it up here. I'd like to see some feedback here on this first, because this is an important point here. The Prabhupada gives the example that if you're going to some university and you enter the engineering department, you don't get a medical degree, you get an engineering degree. And to say that no matter what department you enter, you get the supreme degree, whatever that supreme degree may be. But if you enter the engineering department, you get an engineering degree. If you enter the teaching department, you get a teaching degree. If you enter the business department, you get the business degree. It's not that, and so Prabhupada said that's like worshiping. What did they say here was the sun? They achieve the sun. They get that benefit for worshiping the sun. It's not that they get the benefit. They worship the sun and they go back to Krishna. The sun is actually, as we learned last week, the demigods are different representatives of the Lord who have, what would you say, some kind of, I guess you could call it a government position, a universal government position to manage some particular section of the universe. And so when we worship those demigods, we go to that area. Some feedback, some thoughts from our esteemed group. Nanteshwar has got his finger points up.
Yes, ma'am. So my question was, I'm trying to understand that Krishna was talking about intelligence in some verses before this, that he gives the intelligence. And so what's wrong, or I mean, is it not right if I want to worship a demigod and I'm happy with that?
Well, it just depends on what is your,
because nowadays people keeping demigod aside, people worship science, they worship energy, they don't know what they worship.
Yeah.
So my question is it right to do so?
Is it right to do so? Is it right or wrong? I'm the supreme official to decide whether or not someone's right or wrong. So what I'll do is I'll just say what Krishna and what Prabhupada say. That, and Prabhupada would often say, it's not me saying, it's Krishna saying. That if you worship a demigod, then you go to the demigods. Now, is that right or wrong? It depends on whether or not you're looking for a material benefit or if you're actually looking for spiritual growth. I mean, you can grow spiritually by worshiping the demigods. You can elevate yourself to a better physical or material position. And I think it's in this verse, or was it in the last one, where, can you hear me? Because it says my internet, for some reason, it says my internet's unstable, but it's plugged in.
Yeah.
If I fade away, just raise your hand. So like, so the thing is like, if we really want, if we want, it probably gives another example. I'm not stumbling on my words. I'm thinking of more analogies that he's giving. Just like if you go to a company, especially in India, they have so many secretaries. Even like my doctor, my cardiologist, he actually likes me. He's from India. He's a Sikh. He likes the prasadam. He likes the books I bring him. But when I call the office, I got to go through all the secretaries. Very difficult to get, right? Very, very difficult. And so, so if I just worship one of the secretaries, just to get something from that factory, right? Why not go to the person that's in charge of the factory? Why not go to the person who's in charge? So the demigods are different representatives of the Supreme Lord who have different material functions in this world. And so if we go just to please them, then we can get that benefit. Now, sometimes, of course, some demigods like Shiva are considered to be the topmost Vaishnavas. And if one approaches them for help in reaching Krishna, then it has supreme benefit. Just like the demigod Ganesh, who is the treasurer, Kubera was the treasurer of the demigods. You can remove the obstacles of devotion in devotional service. If you go to India, there's a Ganesh over every temple. But also for Vaishnavas, we also worship Lord Nrsimhadev because he also removes all the obstacles for devotional service. So right or wrong, that's right or wrong. It depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to get, like last week, I think we read, or a couple weeks ago, we read, if you want good health and you worship the sun, and you'll get good health. But how long does our good health last? It can only last, upmost 100 years or something like that. And then eventually we have to go. And so what do you actually gain? What do we actually gain? So to say, is it right or wrong? It kind of makes us and them, and I don't like us and them type, situations. Just like if I go over to the Kalachandji or TKG Academy here, and I see some kids just working on 1 + 1 is 2 and 2 + 2 is 4, I'm very encouraged. So someone has come to the point where they're approaching a demigod for something, and they're following some pious religious principles, they're going to get some benefit. And and if they're interested, I'm more than willing to teach them what Srila Prabhupada has given us. But to make us and them is kind of like, I grew up in that situation with us and them. And we got to be a little inclusive. I actually understand, because even in the Gita, it says those who are in the mode of goodness, they worship the demigods. Those who are in mode of passion, they worship like on this planet, and those who are in the mode of ignorance, they worship like the ghosts or the dead people or something like that. And so different, what do you call it? Different goals are there. But if all you're going to get is some material benefit, so, and ultimately that's not a benefit. It's a temporary thing. So you want a lasting thing, then you got to go to the lasting Supreme Lord.
Thank you, Maharaj.
some other, Nanette.
So last week, I guess, what I heard was that, Krishna doesn't really dissuade people from worshiping the demigods. And, I was thinking, well, in my mind, there's always a higher design, in terms of Krishna. And I was thinking, well, maybe eventually they could be more persuaded to come to Krishna through a demigod.
Yes, that's true. Because Krishna says, he says he's in everyone's heart. And
Right.
as soon as somebody wants to worship some demigod, he what do you say, that he makes his faith steady in that demigod. And this is all again going back to that idea of karma yoga, which is like 96% of the Vedic literatures, where people they worship like this to get this. So they're taught the simple things, at those simple worship processes. And they see like a quick result. One of the things about worshiping the demigods is that you see the result quite quickly, rather than when you go for bhakti yoga, as explained before, that this bhakti is the currency by which Krishna is purchased. So that currency is very, very hard to get. It's very hard to obtain that. But to get just like again, given the office analogy, it's easy to get to the first secretary, but it's not easy to get to the person in charge. And you can get the benefit of that first secretary. And so, but that first secretary, if please, can lead you to the second secretary or the third secretary or I don't know which direction we're going here now, but we're getting closer and closer to the source. And so that's true. That's true. And Krishna, and as you say, the last couple of verses, like he makes his faith steady so he can worship some particular deity. Endowed with that faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and attain his desires. And eventually, actually, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. And men of small knowledge, today's verse, worship the demigods. And he explains how their fruits are limited and temporary. And then those who worship the demigod, they go to the demigods. But those who worship, Hare Krishna, Radha Krishna, Nanda and Durga now. And so when but yeah, it can lead us to that. It can lead us to that, because once you receive some reciprocation from that, then you'll go to the teacher and say, what's next? What is next? Is there something more than this? And you get to the point where you come to the process of bhakti yoga, which is in the middle section. We're right in the middle section now. We're getting into the process of bhakti.
Thank you, Marwa.
Any other thoughts? Did you raise your hand?
I did. I just had to unmute myself here. I have one question. I get the sense that it's maybe that there is more spiritual benefit to be gained from associating with a devotee than worshiping Vishnu, for example,
That
or
is
Shiva, rather, or Shiva, for a better example.
Yeah. Well, Shiva is known as the best of the Vaishnavas, best of the devotees. And of course,
but not a demigod.
Yeah, well, Shiva's a special category. He's in between an individual soul like you or I, but he's not Krishna. He's like right in between. It's Shiva Tattva, the truth of Shiva. So the example is given that Krishna is like milk and Shiva is like yogurt. So Shiva has been touched by the modes of material nature because his service is to, when it comes time for annihilation of the material cosmic manifestation, Lord Shiva is in charge of that. So he assumes that he touches that material energy. So by that touch, the milk becomes yogurt. Just like the example is given. I've never tried this, but the Bhagavad Gita is an analogy that if you touch milk with sour tamarind leaves, that the milk turns into yogurt. We have an Ayurvedic doctor that may have tried that before. And so the idea is, and so the Shiva is known as the best of the Vaishnavas. And like you said, to approach a Vaishnava, to associate with the Vaishnava, will lead in practically every we say part, any part you see in the Bhagavatam or Srimad Bhagavatam, which is that 12th canto version of the 18,000 verses, so many verses say that unless one approaches a Vaishnava, a devotee, to hear, especially to hear, it's very, very difficult to make advancement. That type of association is almost, it's not even almost, it is essential for one's advancement in spiritual life. So as you say, to associate with a Vaishnava devotee of the Lord who actually engages themselves, in the devotional service, gains so much more benefit. We can see what Srila Prabhupada did by coming to America. It's like a spiritual touchstone wherever he went. They thought it was impossible in India to make Westerners into devotees, but somehow or another, us white lepers, sometimes they call us white. We have white leprosy. We were allowed in by the compassion. There's a nice verse that we always say in the morning when we're gathered with the devotees. Vanchakalpa trubhyascha kripasindu bevacha patitanam pavanevyo vaishnavevyo namonam. We offer a respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, for just like desire trees. And they can fill the desires of everyone. There's this, in the spiritual world, there's desire trees that in America, in the Western world, if you go to an apple tree, you get apples. You go to a pear tree, you get pears. In the spiritual world, you can go to the desire tree, and whatever you desire, the tree gives you. And maybe even like you probably get some kind of sweet ball or something. You could, whatever you desire, you can get from those things. So the devotees are just like desire trees, and they fulfill the desires of everyone because they're full of compassion in their heart. Vaishnava actually has compassion within the heart, and that compassion is exhibited by their willingness to sacrifice themselves in the service of Krishna. And there was one question that came up on the chat: is Jesus or Muhammad considered a demigod or a spiritual master? They're considered to be spiritual masters. What about Lakshmi and those who chase riches? Lakshmi is an expansion of Radharani, and Lakshmi is always on the chest or the feet of Narayan. And so you can get wealth, but you can get money, but you can't get fortune. Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune. You may get a few coins, but you can't get good fortune unless you're serving Lakshmi with Narayan. There were some questions that came up in the bottom when we were talking. So you're right, David. The association of a Vaishnava, association of devotees, is essential for one's spiritual advancement. It says that it's just like, we're close to the same age. Show me who your friends are and I'll tell you what you are. If you're hanging out with academic people, you'll be academically inclined. If you're hanging out at the pub, you'll be, guzzling them down. If you're hanging out, whoever you hang out with, you become. And so the devotees of the Lord, they have great faith in the Supreme Lord. And by that association, it increases our faith. So our faith in the process of devotional service, our faith in understanding the Supreme Lord, or accepting that there is a Supreme Lord, understanding the qualities or attributes of the Supreme Lord, is enhanced, practically speaking, only by the association of the Vaishnavas. One has to really learn tolerance in the association of Vaishnavas. It was funny. Where was I at? Oh yeah, I went to get an echocardiogram the other day, and somehow or another we were talking with the nurse who took the IV out of my hand, and the person that does that thing, and somehow or another we were talking about having friends and family members. I said, I can choose people, my friends I want to hang out. I can choose to hang out with this type of person or that type of person. But my family members, they were just like plopped into my life. Some of them may be favorable, some of them may be unfavorable, and so that's the same thing in the Hare Krishna movement. We don't get to choose who joins the Hare Krishna movement. We don't get to choose what type of personality joins the Hare Krishna movement. We get from A to Z. And we may be in the G category, so we hang out with the EFGHI category, and we let the elemental PQ hang out over here, and we let the ABCDs hang out over here, because everybody has a particular nature. But it's always good to have someone who's not quite the same nature, so that you actually understand all perspectives of spiritual life. Very, very good to have that counterpart to actually help us understand the full gamut. So this is just like a little, like I say, I don't want to say like a warning on the side of the cigarette pack. This is kind of like, when you join the Hare Krishna movement, we have to understand we're joining a spiritual hospital. And everyone here has a particular type of disease. I may have disease A, so person with disease B is helping me with my disease A. And because I don't have disease B, I'm helping the person with disease B. And we're going to find a lot of spiritually ill people. But at least we've understood that we're not the body, to at least in a theoretical level, and that we have an opportunity to purify ourselves and learn tolerance, because we all have a common father. We have Srila Prabhupada and we have Krishna. So that ended up being a little bargain for you.
Thank you.
Very good question, though. Very good question. The association of Vaishnavas is very, very wonderful.
Thank you.
Very wonderful.
Maharaj,
Rajendra, you have your hand up.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
I made a little announcement that Kumari has COVID. We may not see you, but I guess
Yeah, I was logging in late because I had to run and pick up some meds and stuff. She's vaccinated, so it didn't hit her as hard. She just has like a really bad cold.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this too shall pass.
Yes.
But I'm staying safe. I was just tying in how people come and ask demigods for specific desires, material desires that they have. And that was one line that struck with me, that for the living entity who desires to return to Godhead, material desires are impediments. And I was thinking a lot, I've been thinking about impediments a lot lately, because as a parent, as a mother, one of our major impediments is our attachment to our children. So my question, I'm still trying to get this together, is we often see, please pray for my daughter, please pray for my father, please pray for my grandfather. Are those really considered material desires that we're asking, benefits? Or, and you know, where's the line?
Yeah, where's the line? Well, we've discussed this before. Back, I think it was 68, one of the first children in a movement, 67, 68. And she wrote Prabhupada that now that I have a child, it's very difficult for me to serve the deity. And Prabhupada wrote back, your child is your deity. So in other words, in as much care that we would give to the deity of Krishna or the worship of Krishna, we give that same level of care to our children. One of my Guru Kul boys was unfortunately killed in a car crash when he was about 20, 21 years old. It's been quite a while now. And I remember speaking at his funeral and saying that, telling the devotees to please pray for him because we want his spiritual, what would you say, growth to continue. We want that spiritual growth to continue. And that through this, like going kind of back to David's point, which was Vaishnava association or the association of devotees. When the devotees pray, that person receives an extreme amount of benefit. Those prayers, it's not like they go unheard. And so to pray to the Lord for the spiritual benefit of another living entity actually is greatly beneficial for them. And also just say, for example, protect my child from, say, disease, or protect my child from this. One may consider that to be tainted, but as we heard that verse several verses ago, karma sarva kamo va, we had that verse, whether one has no desires, has all desires, or desires liberation. Someone has all desires in the material world, or someone has no desires, or someone desires liberation. The idea is to approach the Supreme Lord. And so to approach the Supreme Lord in that sense is also a parent's duty. A parent's duty. I read something funny the other day, and let me just find it on my phone here. So those of you who are parents may appreciate this as soon as I find it, because it's probably a lot further down than I think. And it's when you're a kid, you don't realize you're also watching your parents grow up. Hello? When you're a kid, you don't realize you're also watching your parents grow up. I thought that was a pretty good, I don't know who sent me that. Somebody sent me that. It's pretty good, a pretty good message. So yes, we're also growing up in the eyes of our children. And what we do, our children will see. So if the children see us praying for their well-being, they'll see that devotional side of us, and they'll feel that my parents actually care about me enough to present me to the Lord, and therefore they're getting that nurturing. There's a certain nurturing that goes from the time they come out of the womb until they're 5 or 6 years old, that is almost the basis for the rest of their life. Everything that new experience that they have from that, for that time segment, is well documented to be the most important time. And another thing, I'm really going on for this question, but it's interesting because we have some new children in the community, and I'm on one of the what do you call it, WhatsApp groups that goes to the whole family, and the little boy rolled over. You know, he finally rolled over on his back, and then now he's rolled over on his stomach, and now he's starting to crawl. And in Vedic culture, in spiritual culture, when the child rolls, I don't know, you know, what these little entities, what kind of powers they have, but all they have to do is they just have to roll over for the first time, and we're all excited. And then they just got to roll back over on their stomachs, and we get even more excited. Then when they get up on their kneecaps, it's like, man, it's like next level, right? And we become so enthralled and so, what would you say, happy. So in Vedic culture, there's a spiritual Krishna conscious festival for when the child rolls over. Okay, now we got to have a ceremony. We got to, you know, for the child rolling over, we got to invite the Brahmins, we got to invite the priests, we got to chant mantras, we got to cook a feast, we got to feed everybody in the village. And so when you have a child, you got to have a pretty good bank balance, because they say in the West, it's like, you know, what is it, $250,000 or something like that to raise a kid. In the Hare Krishna movement, if you follow all the festivals, you're going to be serving a lot of prasadam. So, and these things connect us, all these different things, they connect us to Krishna. So our children have the ability to connect us to Krishna. They really do. And we as adults have the ability to connect our children to Krishna, just like when Kumara used to come when she was a little girl. She'll never forget those days. She'll never forget those days being with me and Keshav Bharti Maharaj, and, you know, asking for a spiritual name, and so many different things that happen in their life. They're called samskars, or different events in their lives. And so, according to scripture, it's cool. I mean, it's meant to be. And one time Prabhupada was asked, what should the children do? What should we do with how should the children be raised? What should they do? And he said they should just do the same thing that the adults do. They should just come and worship Krishna. They should be part, you know, they should be part. Of course, when they decide to try to outspeak the speaker, then they have to, as we described last week, when you gain something, you gain the joy of having a child, but then sometimes you have to leave. You lose something where you have to leave the lecture if it's not on Zoom, and you can mute yourself. So nowadays, some parents are quite happy we're having Zoom classes because they can mute their children crazy. So that's my good. That's where it's at. And I know you personally, you actually pray. You know, if she was, your daughter was remembering playing Balaram and play, and she has great affinity for, you know, these things. I love it when the children do plays because they never forget their parts. I was in a Christian play. I remember being out there. All my friends were in the front row of the pews, and they're trying to make me laugh, and I was struggling. But I think I was Joseph or something like that in the Krishna, what do they call it? Nativity? Is that how? Yeah, Nativity. Yeah. So I don't forget. I had this little toga on. I was thinking, this is how we should dress. So yes, you know, make your children, you know, pray for them, pray for their well-being. Pray that Krishna protects them. Pray that Krishna somehow or another inspires them. Pray that they get the association of Vaishnavas. Pray that they can hear. Some other takeaways, some other, what are we calling them? We're calling it reflections now. Right? Somebody has their hand up. Is that
Maharaj?
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay, so we can hear you.
Okay. My favorite chapter so far in the Bhagavad Gita is chapter 1, right? And I always feel like everything that comes up in the remaining chapters invariably reflects it. But if we have a look, if we and we look at the way that the gifts that Krishna received, right? So you had the flag of Hanuman on his chariot. The chariot itself was given by the fire god. It is amazing because I think that just Krishna standing, even with Arjun, surrounded by the gifts of the deities, by the demigods, apologies. I think that image itself conveys the fact that you can reach, and by reaching Krishna, you get the deities, but it's a lot more difficult. For sure, I would imagine. I know, in terms of it doesn't necessarily work the other way around. Does it make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, just that image of that flag fluttering of the chariot, and Krishna standing there. It's just this imposing figure, surrounded by the enormity of these armies. I mean, it's an amazing vision.
Yeah, the Hanuman promised, Arjun actually asked, the Pandavas actually asked Hanuman to fight on their side, and he said, I'm retired, I'll just be on, I guess basically what he said, I'll be on the banner or the flag of Arjun, but I'll give up my war cry. So the flag actually was able to, Hanuman was actually able to, give it as like powerful, what would you call it, warrior cry by being on the thing. And Prabhupada explains how Hanuman was there, and Ram, in the form of Lord Krishna, was also present in the chariot, as you're saying, the chariot was given by the fire god. I mean, and Arjun received so many weapons. He received weapons from Indra, he received weapons from Lord Shiva, he received so many different weapons he received by in some senses, defeating the demigods would come in different forms to challenge. Even Yamaraj came, there was a pastime where the Pandavas, I think they were in exile, and they were, Yudhishthira sent the youngest brother to get some water, and he didn't return. And then they sent the second youngest brother, and he didn't return. Then they sent Bhima, and Bhima didn't return. And then they sent Arjun, and Arjun didn't return. And so then he went for himself, and he saw all his brothers lying next to a lake. They had passed away. They had died. And then a crane appeared and asked them a series of, 101 questions? Yeah, I think so many questions. And it was actually Dharmaraj, who was actually the father of Yudhishthira, checking to see what his qualifications were. And one of the questions he asked him is, what is the most amazing thing? And Yudhishthira says that even though around me, I'm seeing death everywhere, like all his brothers just died, but yet I don't think it's going to happen to me. And then at a certain point in the questioning and answering, what would you say, section of that story, or whatever you want to call it, history, the crane revealed that it was actually Dharmaraj. Dharmaraj meaning the king of Dharma, the king of religious principles, was actually questioning Yudhishthira. And that demigod was actually Yudhishthira's father. And Bhima was the wind god's fire. Arjun was Indra's father. Indra was Arjun's father. And then the twin Ashvins, they were the sons of Nakula and Sahadev. And even Karna was born. Kunti had Durvasa Muni. I mean, this is a long story, but maybe most of the devotees know this. But Durvasa Muni was, he had the ability he was easily pleased and easily upset. And so one time he went to the camp or the kingdom where Kunti was a young girl, and she served this Muni very, very nicely. So he said, I'll give you a benediction. That benediction is that you can call any, I'll give you a mantra, you can call any demigod you want, and they will instantly appear. And so, I mean, she was a young girl. And so after a while, she thought, I wonder if this really works. So she called the sun god, and the sun god appeared. And she said, whoa, it works. I was just checking it out. And the sun god said, well, I can't just show up without producing some progeny. And she said, but I'm unmarried. And he said, well, I can do this. You won't lose your chastity. The sun will be, you'll come from your ear. His name will be Karna, like Divya Karna, like the divine ear, right? And so she had a son, and that son, she didn't know what to do. So she put it in a basket, and it was taken care of by what was he, a carpenter? His father, I think, was a carpenter, chariot maker or something.
Charioteer.
And so he was without caste, but yet he was Yudhishthira and the Pandava's older brother, and that wasn't revealed until the very end of the battle. And so all these demigods are like Ren and everybody's talking. They're all involved in the daily lives. They're involved in our daily lives, one way or the other. So I don't know how we got onto the Karna and that kind of story, but just, I mean, we have Indra, we have the wind god, we have Hanuman, we have Dharmaraj, we have all these different personalities that are, what would you say, revealed, and they have special characteristics. And sometimes they even forget that Krishna is God. Just like Indra thought, how could this little boy be the supreme personality of God? And he's eating with his left hand, and so he forgets. And Lord Brahma forgot. What to speak of us? Anyone can forget at any time. But generally, the devas don't forget. Generally, the devas, they understand. Some more, or at least getting something from the esteemed group this year. I mean, this week. That's nice. I like it when we do one paragraph, we just kind of unlock the whole thing. Or should we read one more paragraph? Or
Yes, Maharaj. 5 minutes.
Who do we have? Brajavuni, you want to read the second paragraph? I saw you put your glasses on, getting prepared.
For the living entity who desires to return to Godhead, material desires are impediments.
Where are we at?
No, she's at the.
No, I'm in the wrong spot.
Yeah, here at this point.
Yeah. Here, the point may be raised that if the demigods are different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, then the same end should be achieved by worshiping them. However, worshippers of the demigods are less intelligent because they don't know what part of the body food must be supplied. Some of them are foolish that they claim that there are many parts and many ways to supply food. This is in very sanguine. Can anyone supply to the body through the ears or eyes? They do not know that these demigods are different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord. And in their ignorance, they believe that each and every demigod is separate God and a competitor of the Supreme Lord.
So what do you think of that analogy? Anybody have some feedback from that analogy? I mean, it really makes the position of the demigods crystal clear. It's like there's different, in other words, food has to go in the mouth. You can't stick it in your ear. You can't stick it in your eyes. I mean, Prabhupada said sometimes when you're very, very sick, they have to feed you from different ways, but that's not the norm. And that was a class back in 1966. Prabhupada was saying that, and Prabhupada was quite blunt. He actually said where it was being where it was being served in the class. I can't even do it. It's just too shy to do something like that. But generally, it's such a great analogy. The demigods are different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord. The sun and moon are compared to the eyes, right? And different, different things are compared to different, aspects of the Supreme Lord. And so to think that we can satisfy the hunger by feeding the ear or feeding the eye or feeding our nose, no, very, very clear. Anyone get anything from this? Or some takeaway, some reflection, some more inspiration?
Well, I kind of stumbled in the reading, Maharaj, because something kind of popped into my head. We are parts and parcels of the Lord versus the demigods are body parts of the Lord. Could you spend a little bit on that? You know how it says we are parts and parcels of the Lord.
Yeah, well, the demigods are also parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, but they have different functions. They have different functions to perform. And so they're compared to the different bodily parts of the Lord, like the trees or the hair. I mean, if that's part of the universal form and stuff like that. And so, but the demigods aren't anything different than you or I. They just have a different position than you or I. They have a different position. So just like someone may be the governor of a state, so, but we may just be a citizen of the state. So the governor has more responsibility, so he'll be considered on a different level. So it's basically like that. The demigods are also part and parcel. Mai Vangso, Jiva Loka, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We're all eternal parts and parcels of Krishna. And from Brahma down to the Lord Brahma down to Indra Gopa, the smallest living entity is called Indra Gopa. At least they say that in the scripture. They're all individual parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Even Lord Brahma is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. But Lord Brahma is the head. We don't want to get too lost. That's good. It's good. We get clarification. Some other takeaway, or should we get another reader? We have our Nanette. You want to do the third paragraph, Nanette?
Not only are the demigods parts of the Supreme Lord, but ordinary living entities are also. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the Brahmanas are the head of the Supreme Lord. The Kshatriyas are his arms. The Vaishyas are his waist. The Sudras are his legs, and all serve different functions. Regardless of the situation, if one knows that both the demigods and he himself are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, his knowledge is perfect. But if he does not understand this, he achieves different planets where the demigods reside. This is not the same destination the devotee reaches.
So that kind of answers your question, right, Rajabhumi? Yeah. I mean, it was in this, all I had to do is read the next paragraph. Not only the demigods part and parcel here, but ordinary living entities are also. So now we get this hierarchy, how the Brahmins are the head, the Kshatriyas, the arms, the Vaishyas. Vaishya actually means like the belly. It's where everything is, the weight, it says waist, but sometimes it says the belly. Food goes into the mouth and goes into the belly, and it provides for everything. And the Sudras are the legs, and also different functions. So Prabhupada says here, regardless of the situation, if one knows that both the demigods and he himself are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, then his knowledge is perfect. And that we have to clarify that. Just like Srila Prabhupada was explaining, he was at Dr. Misha's ashram in March of '66. This is before Prabhupada even had his own place to stay. And Dr. Mishra had a yoga ashram. He allowed him to stay there. And Prabhupada was explaining, he was trying to explain how the caste system in India, they're fighting against his caste system because it's not by birth. And we've given this example here before, and Prabhupada gave that example, a similar example to that class. If I'm the son of a doctor, it doesn't mean that I'm a doctor. And I may have a good option to become a doctor because my father is a doctor or my mother is a doctor, and that may be in the environment of my home, but I have to undergo all the requirements to become a doctor. It's not just because my father's a doctor. If I don't have the qualifications to be a doctor, then I'm not a doctor. And so in the same way, if someone's born in a Brahmin family, it doesn't mean that by birth they're Brahmin. They have to have the characteristics. They have to have the guna and karma. The nature and the actions have to show that. Same with Kshatriya, same with Vaishya, same with Sudra. If someone has a helper mentality, they're not Brahmin, they're not Kshatriya, they're not Vaishya. They're helper, and that doesn't. If you're born in what do you call, quote unquote, higher caste, your caste is of your nature and of your activities. But probably in that lecture, you were saying that we've been trying to push this caste system out of India for years. It was, this was 1966. He's talking about this. So we can see, probably it says here, but if one does not understand, he chooses different planets where the demigods reside, and that's not the same. We don't go to the same place. Again, if you put food, you're not going to get the result by putting food into the ear. Some thoughts or reflections on this last paragraph? We got like 5 minutes. I don't know if we can finish up the last paragraph in 5 minutes. What are you thinking, Anteshwar?
We'll keep it for the next week.
Okay, yeah, it's really because we usually like to catch up a little bit more.
Yeah.
So any other feedback, any other thoughts from this verse? Men of small intelligence worship the demigods and their fruits are limited and temporary. So why are they limited and temporary? Anybody have an idea why they're limited and temporary?
Because they usually, yes, because they usually give temporary things like, wealth or house or those things, but they just end with their life.
Yeah. They give material benefits. And material benefits, not nasatovajite bhavo, na bhavo. That which is material is temporary. And that which is spiritual is eternal. And so they're only given us temporary intelligence. Their fruits are limited. They're only limited to material acquisition, and they're temporary, even if you receive something. Very, very, Vajrabhumi says the answer is in the last paragraph. The results achieved by the demigods' benedictions are perishable because within this material world, the planets, the demigods, and their worshippers are all perishable. Every question we had was answered in the next paragraph today. Therefore, it's clearly stated in this verse that all the results achieved by worshiping the demigods is perishable. Perishable, I just had something go, I found something in the back corner of my refrigerator that I didn't know was there. It was definitely perished. It had definitely perished. And therefore, such worship is performed by the less intelligent living entities, because pure devotees engage in Krishna consciousness and devotional service of the Supreme Supreme Lord achieves eternal blissful existence that is full of knowledge. His achievements and those of the common worshippers of the demigod are different. The benefit is permanent. Neha become an astasi pachavaya and the vegetate. In this endeavor, the spiritual action, the spiritual of engaging or dovetailing our actions in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, and it cannot be diminished in any time. If we gain 10% God consciousness in this lifetime, then we begin at 10 or 11, working on 11% in our next lifetime. And the Supreme Lord is unlimited. His favor is unlimited. His mercy is unlimited. Therefore, the mercy of the Supreme Lord upon his pure devotee is unlimited. This is the nature of the Supreme Lord. We can't, for us, it's very difficult to understand unlimited. Eternality is like, we try to break things down into historical segments. Somebody sent me something today. What was it? In 2 more full moons, it's going to be the Kartik season, the Damodar month. In just 2 more, two full moons, which is like 1 month away, it's going to be Kartik, which is it's one of our cool months for those who are new to our channel here. It's the month where Krishna was bound up with a rope by his mother. And we have a special song for that month. It's been so much spiritual, what would you say, benefit by worshiping Krishna during that month. It's a very, very special month. And somebody sent me something today, and it said that, anyway, it was like, it put time in a perspective. It was like a little chart, like in 1980, it was so many years since World War II or something, and for me, it was just like, oh my God, this is like, it's just bang, 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 bang. It's just like, it just goes by so fast. It just goes by so fast. Now, I'm actually on that chapter in the Bhagavatam, calculation of time by the atom. And it starts out like a millisecond by the movement of an atomic movement. And it goes all the way up to the lifetime of Lord Brahma, who lives for 311 trillion 40 billion years. And they calculate time from like a millisecond all the way up to the expanse of the life of Lord Brahma. And you almost have to have a degree in mathematics to get through this chapter. And Prabhupada says that, he says, for those who have interest in mathematics, this may be very interesting, but for me, it's just like, I know it's connected to Krishna. Krishna is time, and therefore, then he makes the chart of all the different, like one of this is like 1/17,000th of a second. This is 8/8000th of a second. This is 1/4000th of a second. And then you get all the way down to Lord Brahma's life. But it's all there in the scripture. It's all there in the scripture. Okay. I think we reached our initial. We want to extend the class from Lankeshwar.
We completed the verse, Maharaj.
Yeah, we did. We completed it because I ended up reading because someone said, or Brajabhumi said, the answer is in the answer, my friend, is in the next paragraph. We can change the words to the song.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll see you all next Tuesday. Are we going to be for Vyas Puja Day?
If there are programs in temple in the evening, I don't know what's the schedule.
Yeah. So, is there a program in the evening at the temple next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the 30th, isn't that on Monday?
That's Jamashtami.
Janmashtami.
Prabhupada Appearance Day.
I haven't seen anything on Prabhupada yet.
We haven't got.
Yeah.
I think,
So,
Maharaj, there might be something. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
should we postpone until 2 weeks?
Yes,
We
Maharaj.
don't like to compete with temple projects because it's not fair.
Yes, Maharaj.
I mean, is everybody here on a mailing list? David, I can reach out to you. I can reach out to you. Anybody else not on our mailing list, like on my WhatsApp, what do you call it, podcast, daily podcast for Japa? I think, Sri Rupa, you're there, right? Yeah. Brajabhumi, you have Nanette.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. So what we can do is we'll find out, and I'll take care of those who are on my WhatsApp, and I'll take care of David. And if there's no conflict, we'll have a class, and we'll say there's class, and we'll also inform you if there is no class. We'll do air conditioning and heating.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you.
Like expert electricians, we can heat and cool with the same type of energy.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Okay,
Bye,
and
Raj.
Rajalila, I'll talk to you on WhatsApp. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you.
Jai Jai and Radhika Krishna.
Thank you very much.